Should Virat Kohli be removed from the opening position? Hey everyone, this is Honored, and I'm going to talk to you all today about the India versus Afghanistan game. So let's first talk about Virat Kohli. India's top order batting has been somewhat underwhelming this tournament, and this is largely exposed in the power play where India hasn't been that successful. None of the batters characterize these power play struggles more than Virat Kohli. In the game against Afghanistan, he ended the power play 17 runs off 15 balls. Now that's a strike rate of 113. I try and tell you about his low strike rates in the past couple games, but he's only scored 5 runs in those other games. I'm going to give you a list of names, and you're going to try and tell me what they have in common. Okay? Akshar Patel, Roston Chase, and Harmeet Singh. You might think these are all some pretty good bowlers. Maybe it has to do with wickets, maybe economy. You might be thinking around. But what then you realize, they all have more runs than Virat Kohli this tournament. That's crazy to think about, how India's opening position has less runs in a tournament than the USA's lower order batter. The point that I want to make here is that India needs to be more competitive in the power play. Their main opponents, England, Australia, West Indies, they all have power play run rates over 9. But India's right now just sits at 7.04. It's important to understand that there's been differences in the pitches and differences in opponents. But one thing becomes really clear. India needs to make changes to their top order if they want to be competitive against the better teams of the tournament. Now, these low power play run rates, they might slide with lower ranked teams, but it's not going to work against the big teams that will dominate India in the power play. We discussed this a bit in our last podcast, where we were talking about changes that India could make to their top order, and one alternative that was brought up was that Virat Kohli should be slid down to 3 and Jaiswal should be brought in to open with Rohit Sharma. We've seen Kohli's abilities at number 3. He's a class player. He has the ability to anchor an innings like no one else. But the fact of the matter is that India doesn't need an anchor in the power play. What they need is an aggressor, right? Now, you might think that with Rohit Sharma at the other end, it should be fine for Kohli. He should be able to play the way he plays, and India should still be able to dominate the power play. The problem is Rohit Sharma, he's not playing his best either, right? Recently, he had that 50 in one of the first games against Ireland, but recently his scoring has been down. It might be worth the risk to go for a young batter like Yashasvi Jaiswal. In the 2 T20 internationals he's played in 2024, his power play strike rate is almost 180. And yeah, you heard that right, 180, okay? Virat Kohli's, on the other hand, nowhere near that number. He might be that X-factor player that India need to win those crucial games, or to at least be competitive in the power play. And though he hasn't played any games yet, I think he could make a big difference if he's brought into the squad. Speaking of X-factor players, let's talk about Jasprit Bumrah next. Recently in the game against Afghanistan, he bowled an innings with 20 dot balls. This would seem so much more impressive if Lockie Ferguson didn't just bowl a 24 dot ball game a couple of days ago. But now in this World Cup, where bowlers have seemed to dominate more than they used to, it's not that crazy. Some other impressive performances from the match were by Suryakumar Yadav and Hardik Pandya. When Shivam Dube got out and Hardik was coming in, I was getting a little nervous, right? Wickets were falling at the other end from Sky, and I thought maybe they would slow down, right? That's usually what happens when wickets fall. Batters tend to be a little more defensive, they don't want to have a total collapse. But something I saw in the interview that happened with Suryakumar Yadav when he was getting his Player of the Match award, he told the interviewer that when Hardik was coming in, that he told Hardik, we have to keep the intent going. We have to keep the runs flowing, right? That's one of the things that I find interesting about him. Even when wickets are toppling down at the other end, he doesn't have someone there to stay with him. He knows that he needs to keep the run rates up to be competitive in the game. He knows when to take those inventive shots and play them, and he knows the time and place for everything. And that's the kind of mentality you need to have in T20 cricket nowadays. Even if you're not a power hitter who can just smack sixes at will, you need to have that aggressive mentality that runs need to be scored. And this is the mentality that makes Suryakumar Yadav the best T20 batter today. His partnership with Hardik Pandya for a total of 60 runs propelled India to a comfortable score and led after Bumrah and company. They bowled beautifully, and Afghanistan were left defenseless. Looking forward to the game against Bangladesh. It's being held in Antigua, where there's recently been a little rain. It might be wet, but I don't think it should affect the game too much. We've seen recently that the pitch does a lot for the pace bowlers. Even when the off-pace deliveries are coming in, the batters are struggling to play them. And Pat Cummins just took a hat trick. Wasn't because of the off-pace deliveries, but that happened recently. I expect Bumrah and Arshdeep to be really impactful in the game, especially in those first few overs and throughout the middle orders. It appears to be a relatively high-scoring ground. We just saw that South Africa and USA game, both teams scoring more than 170. If you've got this far into the video, you already know what I think about India's top order and what they should change. However, I don't see the team making any changes before the game, and I expect them to keep with the same bowlers just to have a little bit more stability and give Kuldeep especially a couple more games to get into form before, let's say, the semis or the final, right? And that's probably what they'll do with Virat Kohli as well, even though he's probably not in the best form. They want to give him, maybe if they just give him a couple more chances, the form will click and we'll be off. All right, that's it for me today. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe if you want to get updates on our new videos, and make sure to check out, we just filmed an episode for the Square Drive podcast. It's really exciting. We talk a bit more about India's top order struggles and what they can do to fix them. And yeah, that's it for me today. Let me know in the comments what you think about the India team and what should they do going forward. But yeah, thank you for watching.